Welcome to this FoxNewsVideo.com exclusive from the Republican National Convention in Cleveland. We're joined by Joe Borelli, who is co-chair of the Trump campaign in New York State, also a member of the New York City Council and a Republican delegate to the convention here in Cleveland. Joe, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Let me hear a little bit about what you're experiencing on the floor as the anti-Trump forces try to stage a coup on the first day of the convention.
Let's start here. It's a great experience. It's a wonderful turnout. The city of Cleveland really is getting a highlight that it otherwise wouldn't have gotten, and it's been wonderful. That said, today there was a bit of a little kerfluffle on the floor of the convention today, and we had a minority of delegates, mostly from Utah and Virginia. Now, Utah voted against Trump overwhelmingly, but Virginia didn't. Virginia supported Trump. Still, the delegates from those states essentially tried to force a rules vote that would unbind the delegates. It was met with a voice vote, which was clearly in favor of maintaining the adopted rules, but they still tried to force a roll call vote, which ultimately didn't happen.
In fact, they said that, to their ears, they won the voice vote.
Well, it's a little ridiculous. I was standing right under the podium, so I could attest with fact that I heard more ayes than nays. It really was only two states, Utah, Virginia, maybe a few others.
And when you see that this pops up on the first day, what does it say about the state of the party and support for the man whose campaign you co-chair in New York State, Donald Trump?
Look, it's not something we didn't expect. You know, there's been so much build-up to this moment that it was almost, in some ways, a letdown for the Never Trump movement. This was the grand finale of their coup d'etat. Again, an extreme minority of delegates. We were told there was 9 states who signed this pledge. You need 7. 3 states dropped out, and the reason why they dropped out is because people signed petitions who were duped into signing petitions. They didn't even know why they were signing in the first place. Once people realized what they were doing, they quickly changed course. But I'll say this is democracy. You know, we're a bottom-up party. The Republican Party is a bottom-up party. If people want to have arguments on the floor, it's allowed in our rules. Unlike the Democratic Party, where you rely on top-down superdelegates, elite, really driving the message.
So, in this moment, do you see a fractured Republican Party behind Donald Trump? Do you see Donald Trump as unique in terms of the Republican traditions?
Donald Trump is a unique candidate. I mean, we can't dodge that bullet. I mean, he's certainly someone who's changed the face of the party, changed the dynamic of the party, added many new voters, and quite frankly, yeah, he has. There has been some reservation amongst conservatives for supporting him. I think the pick of Mike Pence really did address that to a large extent, and I think that's a big part of why this Never Trump movement fizzled out. A lot of Republicans have come to the realization that there is a binary choice. It's either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, and we get one bite at the apple. When this convention gets finished with, I'm very confident you'll have a very solidly united Republican Party behind Donald.
If you were face-to-face with the anti-Trump movement at this moment, and you said to them it's a binary choice, as you just told me, it's Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, what do you say? Wall Street Journal poll today saying, you know, it's like 60+% of the party says we don't want him as the nominee.
Well, I don't think that poll's accurate. Some of the polls I saw were as high as 85% of people will support Donald Trump. Maybe they weren't. Maybe he wasn't their first choice, and that's fine. He did get a majority of the votes, rather a plurality of the votes. He was in a large race.
Right.
You got to tell the other side you lost. They ran good races. Ted Cruz ran an exceptional race. John Kasich ran an exceptional race. But they lost. It's over. This is how democracy works. You have one chance to tell the people in your state, in your district, in your congressional district, this is who you vote for. And think about that. These are people who signed up to be delegates under the rules that their state provided for. And now, all of a sudden, because they're not happy with the outcome, they don't want to be delegates who respect the will of their voters. And that's wrong. That's very wrong.
Joe, you're inside the Trump campaign. Help us to understand the message that Donald Trump wants to send to the American people during these 4 days.
Well, I mean, to start with tonight's messaging, it's basically make America safe again. I think under the Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama administration or time they served together, you saw America's presence in the world probably diminishing. And a lot of Americans feel less safe than they did 8 years earlier. You know, Newt Gingrich spoke to the New York delegation this morning, and he gave a great speech about sheep and wolf. And he said, you know, essentially, Americans are sometimes sheep. And we have a president right now who doesn't know who the wolf is, doesn't know what to call the wolf, doesn't know what to do with the wolf, even if he found the wolf. And that's a great analogy, because I think the president does suffer from some collective amnesia at some point, and the Democratic Party rather has some collective amnesia on who's making America less safe.
And so today is Make America Safe Again. What about the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, especially the Thursday when Donald Trump himself will speak?
I think Donald Trump is going to try to appeal to a very broad swath of Americans in this speech. You know, I think the Pence pick was something that is really going to solidify him with the base of the party, and now he's going to use this opportunity to really highlight how a wider variety of Americans, including people of color, immigrants, all people that we wouldn't traditionally associate as Donald Trump supporters, I think you're going to see him make an earnest appeal to them.
At the convention, we've heard lots of talk about the fact that you don't have a Marco Rubio. Questions about whether Ted Cruz will ultimately speak. And, of course, you don't have the governor of this state, Ohio, John Kasich. Again, what do you make of the fact that you see people who ran for the nomination refusing to appear at the convention?
Well, Marco Rubio is sending a video, and he's making his support known for the convention for Donald Trump, and I think that's great. Ted Cruz is here. I think there's just as much speculation on whether he's going to actually endorse Donald Trump, and that would be a great thing for the party. Look, you have Mike Pence. Mike Pence and Ted Cruz share a lot of similar values and beliefs and record. I think that was a disarming thing for a lot of conservatives when Donald Trump essentially humbled himself a little bit and said, you know what, I want to get somebody who's conservative. As far as Kasich, look, you know, people have to make their own minds up, and I do think it is unfortunate that the governor of this state won't come to the convention. I really think it does send a bad message to the Republican Party. You know, that said, we just got to move on. You know, you want to come, you don't want to come, it's fine. We just got to move on.
When you're thinking about now strategies going into the fall, what are you thinking about? What's the key strategy? We talked about messaging. What's the key strategy to politically push Donald Trump over the top?
It is 100% going to be to go after the Rust Belt states. Again, it plays right into Mike Pence's strengths. He's a guy who the unemployment rate in Indiana was over 8%. Now it's down to just above 5%. I mean, these 150,000 jobs created in one state. This is the record and the message that you want to bring to in a state like here in Ohio, in Michigan, Wisconsin. Those are the voters we're going to go after. The polling indicates that we have not only a chance, but a great opportunity to probably even potentially pull ahead of Secretary Clinton over the next few days. That's the strategy. It's going to be obviously to go after the Romney states and then move to the Rust Belt.
That's interesting. So the Rust Belt states would be Ohio, it would be Michigan, Wisconsin, states that have been hard hit on jobs, especially by trade deals. Republicans traditionally have been supporters of free trade. Here comes Donald Trump and says, no, I view it differently. Mike Pence has been a supporter of free trade. Donald Trump says, well, he's going to come along with me.
And Mike Pence is going to have to change his views if he hasn't done so internally. You're asking Americans to look at objective facts and objective reality about their lives, and many people in these states are finding that the system isn't working for them, or it's not working for them as well as it possibly could. Right. Donald Trump's not saying we're never going to do any trade deals ever. He's saying we're going to negotiate trade deals to favor American workers, American manufacturers, and American companies. There's nothing wrong with that, and I think that's the message that'll play well in a lot of those states.
And when you're looking at those states, again, you're looking at states where you have some Senate candidates at play. I'm thinking in specific of Illinois, Mark Kirk. Won't say a word about Donald Trump. How do you interpret this?
Look, Illinois is a tough nut to crack for Republicans. Let's start there. It's not like maybe a state like Michigan where there might be a better chance. Again, it's the same message as I would have to John Kasich. Get on board. It's lead, follow, or get out of the way, essentially, right?
Right.
We want you on board. We'll welcome you on board. But if you don't, we just have to move on. And that's fine. The senator can make up his own mind. It's interesting, though, to see a lot of members of Congress, a lot of members of the Senate are really now taking an active role in his campaign.
Oh, good. Now, what about advertising, money, on-the-ground troops? What are you seeing as someone who's, again, co-chair of the Trump campaign in New York?
So the campaign, since the sort of beginning of June, has done an outstanding job raising money and catching up to Secretary Clinton. Obviously, the money issue is real. We don't have as much money right now as Secretary Clinton. That said, what does it say about Secretary Clinton's campaign when she's spending him, 6 to 1, 5 to 1 in many states, spending hundreds of millions of dollars more than him, and is getting essentially worse in the polls every day? It's almost like she spends more money. It's only reminding Americans how much they dislike her.
Joe Borelli is a Trump co-chair in New York State, also a New York delegate to the Republican convention here in Cleveland, and a member of the New York City Council. Joe Borelli, thanks so much for joining us.
Appreciate it.
We appreciate it. Joe Borelli, brought to you by FoxNews.com, video exclusive from the Republican convention.